A wax resist stick can be a good alternative to masking fluid, and in my previous video I talked about the basics on how to use this, but today we're actually going to use it in a painting. Grab your watercolors and give them a good spritz. On about the top 2/3 of the page, I want you to wet that with some water, and then we're going to take our brush and we're going to dip it straight into some black, and I want you just to kind of randomly drop some of that color right into the wet area on that paper. Maybe even go back in, take a clean brush and drop some water into that. Our goal is to make kind of a textured gray background here. Then we need to let it dry or make it dry. And then once it's dry, I'm going to grab something round. I found this that's the size I want it to be. I'm going to plop it down and then I'm going to trace a light circle around it so that I know where I want my moon to be. And normally I don't trace things in these little paintings like this, but since this is clear, I need to know where I'm actually going with this. So I'm going to grab the wax resist crayon here, and I'm going to fill that entire moon shape in. And I'll be honest, this is a little bit hard to keep track of where you've put it, but do your best to fill the entire thing in. Then in one of our wells, we're going to put a little bit of water, and we're going to make a really dark blue-gray color. And you could do this with any color you want your sky to be, just make sure it's a nice dark color. And my favorite way to mix a dark blue-gray color is to mix together a blue, kind of like a phthalo blue, and then a orangey color, like a vermilion. Just adding more and more of those colors to the water until I get the saturation that I like. And starting at the top, I'm going to take this dark color, and I'm not going to be too careful around the areas we put that resist, because the idea is that it will block off the water so we don't need to worry about it too much. I'm going to place that mostly around the moon, then I'm going to start to add some water into my brush, and I'm going to pull that down so it gets a little bit lighter towards the bottom. Now, I think this is really interesting because since it's a crayon, it has that really natural edge. So it doesn't make a super crisp line, but it does a pretty good job of blocking off the extra color where we don't want it to go. Then again, we need to let it dry or make it dry. And then once it's dry, I'm going to grab an angle brush and I'm going to put some water in it and I'm going to dip straight into my pan of black paint and really coat the bristles in a super dark black color. I'm going to be framing our night sky with the moon with some very simple evergreen trees, and I love using an angle brush for this. The way that I do this is kind of mark out where the trunk is going to be. At the top, I tap just a bit, and then what I start to do is I start to tap and twist my brush a little further out as I go down. I love this technique because each of these trees only takes me probably about 10 seconds to make because we're just tapping and twisting and moving our brush a little bit. And then once I had my trees established, I felt like it needed just a little bit something extra, so I'm going to grab a white gel pen, I'm going to add in some dots for stars, and add in some bigger stars on just a couple of them. This is one of those paintings that's just so peaceful to make because it all comes together and makes this beautiful scene. Plus, it was a really fun way to explore using this wax resist crayon.